Hello, everyone. How y'all doing? It's your boy, the Crooked Commish. Back at it again here. We're talking fantasy football talk here. Thank you all for joining. If you guys like looking at this face, like hearing this voice, you know what? Scratch those first two. If you like fantasy football talk and you like to talk fantasy football, go ahead and subscribe here. Please like. We appreciate any kind of likes we get, and subscribe and share this with your friends and stuff. So, besides this show that we have going on, your boy at the Crooked Commish Fantasy Football Show, we also have a show Tuesday nights. That's the main show with T-Nick, JB, Foulmouth C, and Frank the Tank. Talking Bears talk. If you guys like that, again, subscribe, like. Now that we know that the Bears are going to be on Hard Knocks, it's definitely going to give us a lot more to talk about. So there's going to be a lot of content. It's going to be a lot of drama if Caleb does shitty and has a terrible practice. And then there's going to be a lot of hype and hoopla if he's dotting them up on the field and looks great. So, but we all got to take it all with a grain of salt. Because at the end of the day, it's just practice. So with that being said, what's on the agenda tonight, you may be asking. I'll tell you. Tonight, we're going to talk about some of the QB duels that we have going on out in the NFL. Which one of these guys would you, if you had to, take in a pinch as far as with your fantasy teams? Which quarterback would you feel more comfortable with? I have a list here that we're going to go through, me and a guest of mine as well. And just kind of give our thoughts on, like I said, if you were stuck between a rock and a hard place and you kind of had to look at one of these two QBs, which one would you feel more comfortable going with? So without any further delay, let's just go ahead and get into it. Hey, welcome back, guys. So, like I said, we do have some other shows as well besides the Tuesday show and this show. On Wednesdays, we have She Said What She Said with Sherry and her co-host. I'm drawing a blank on her name right now. I do apologize about that. After that, then on Thursday nights, we have our Plunked show, our baseball show with Christine and Emilio, talking Cubs and White Sox baseball. No, Daniel, Tommy fans busy trying to fight the opposing team there, so I don't think he'll be joining us tonight. But be an awesome guest if we could. Probably be better for the Thursday night show. So anyways, about these QBs here that we're going to talk about tonight. Let me just kind of clarify real quick. You would be looking at these QBs if you're in a deep fantasy league. So whether maybe a 16, maybe 20 team-man league, and even then you'd still be scared to have these guys as your starters. Another reason you may be looking at these QBs is if you're in a 2 QB fantasy league. So and with those QBs go fast in those drafts. So you never really, like I said, are going to fall in love with these choices, are really going to be thrilled about having to start any one of these guys. But sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures, and you just kind of have to start who you can. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring on my guest here. And
Right here, baby. Come on, JJ.
Yeah, your boy just got paid.
JJ.
He got a nice, handsome bag there, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
guy earned it, I guess. You know, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
wasn't much. I was surprised that it wasn't a little higher. I was thinking it would have been like more of a 5-year, 150 type deal, like just a little bit above Tyreek Hill and how he got it. But, 110 guaranteed though. Woo.
I think they were kind of twisting JJ's arm for the 4-year contract. I think if it was up to JJ, he would have only signed a 3-year contract. Just not that he doesn't want to be on the Vikings, but just so he can hit the market again and get paid again.
And get one more payday,
Yes.
one more big payday, right? I mean,
yes.
4 years from now, he's not going to be as fast. He's not going to be, we saw Larry Fitzgerald, right? Way up here, slowly going down, so.
But 3 years from now, he could still be at that peak, not quite hitting that decline. So that's why it kind of be better to get it there. But
anyway, I had to give the boy some love, give him a little representation since today's the day he signed it. And
yeah, no, for sure. And it's better now than later out in the season. Like the more they delay it, the more expensive the contract's going to get. So
yeah, I figured they were going to sign him because they didn't trade him at the draft, but it would have been cool, if we were having like a complete rebuild season. We could get 2 more picks, a first and a second and a fifth or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It would have been, we could have been like Chicago, rebuild.
Only not as good.
So, I mean, come on now. Caleb, he hasn't had the practice. I mean, I've been hearing bad stuff, like horrible OTAs.
Hey.
I mean, people are like, shit, we got rid of Fields so fast. We should have held on to him for 1 more year.
Yeah, no, trust me, a lot of us on this channel were not exactly thrilled that we were getting rid of Fields, but like I said, I wasn't shocked when it happened, just because.
Well, like I said last time when we were on the show, I was like, oh my gosh, Fields, Pittsburgh, 6th round. Shit, give Pittsburgh 4th round. We'll take Fields. I would still, if I had my choice between, the 2 quarterbacks we have in Fields, I'm still leaning towards just, Fields. So I like him. I wish he would have been a Viking. You guys kind of shafted us the first time with him too. So
you're going to have your chance next year. He'll be a free agent. So depending on how your quarterback have now, I mean, depending on how JJ or Sam Darnold looks, I mean, you may be in the market for another quarterback.
We're riding the JJ McCarthy train now for at least 3 years. I mean, how long did Trubisky? Was it 3 years?
Something like that. He didn't get a second contract. I think he got 4 years, but it, like nowadays, because the contracts aren't super crazy like they used to be in the early 2000s, it's more easier for teams to kind of cut their losses early. Even it's just like, yeah, whatever, we spent a 1st round pick on him, but we know after seeing him, getting him in our doors, that he's not the guy. He's not going to work out. So if JJ, and like I said, and this is only if JJ, of course, when your guys look at him and don't think, like you said, he's not a proven quarterback past 10 yards. If that gets proven in the practice field, then I think they're going to have to move on, because Justin Jefferson isn't going to want to be running these short yardage slant plays all the time.
Just to get hit by a linebacker. That ain't going to happen.
Right.
Hey, he's not a Jerry Rice, right? I mean, the Jerry Rice and freaking Montana, or Rice and Steve Young, 5 yards, cut across, bam, gone, But anyway, I'll let you. I just wanted to give Justin Jefferson a little bit of love.
Yeah.
Might be the only real love he gets this year, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, we will definitely see. It'll be interesting to see where he goes in fantasy drafts for sure. Just because
he
has thrown him the ball.
Want to bet a beer he breaks 1,000 yards?
Make it 1,200, and then we can bet on that. I think.
Really?
Think about it. There's an extra game to play now. Like,
come on, seriously, that's
Yeah, no, JJ's still gonna. I think 1,000 yards is like a no-brainer. He's gonna have to have like even with a shitty QB. Like say if these
Really, you
QBs
get
are,
beer for free. And all right,
I'll
man.
do
All
the
right.
bet. I'll do the bet. I'll meet me in the middle at 1,100 then.
Come on, 1,000 yards. We're talking Sam Darnold and
That's
JJ
fair.
McCarthy.
Hey, we don't know what JJ can do. Like he could be legit. I mean, so
I mean, I would do 1,200 if Cousins was still our quarterback,
yeah.
but he's
Well,
not.
yeah. At that point, I would want 1,400 if Cousins was still
Oh
your
my
quarterback.
gosh.
All right. Well, let's get into let's before we get too off track. Let's get into these QBs. I'm going to throw some QBs at you. We'll go team by team here. If you were in a pinch, like I was saying earlier, I think if you're in a 10-man, 12-man team league, you're not necessarily looking to have these guys as your starter. Maybe these guys are like your number 2 quarterback if you're kind of looking to play matchups. But or like I said, if you're in a deep league, if you're in a 16, 20-man team league or in a 2 QB fantasy league, these are kind of quarterbacks that you may unfortunately have to get. So
What about a keeper league?
yeah, I don't. I'm not sure about
I
any of
picked
these.
Anthony Richardson 14th round last year.
Yeah, no, I mean the only one. There's maybe about 1 or 2 of these QBs here that possibly could fit that list, but some of these other veteran QBs, I'm not too sure about. Although it
Yeah,
did work out.
there's just a couple of those rookies in there, but yeah, let's
Yeah.
kick it off.
All right. So the first team I wanted to talk about was the Patriots between Jacoby Brissett and Drake May. If you had to choose between those 2 guys, or who do you think between those 2 guys is going to be sitting on that magical chair once the music stops?
Drake May is going to be the starter.
Yeah. And now, do you think he's going to be the starter at the end of the season there as well?
He's going to be starter by the end of training camp.
Okay.
Brissett is a great backup.
Right.
He's like like I graded Cousins as a B plus quarterback, right? Never the elite, but a good thing. Brissett is like a great B plus backup. And I think that I give him props for being that, but he's not good enough to be a 17 game starter, but he's good enough to be, a solid B as far as 3-4 games or whatever the case may be.
See, and that's I understand that, and I agree with that. He's definitely proven that throughout his NFL career as well, that he can be used in a pinch. That's why I think I would be surprised if Mays was the starter. Drake May was the starter by the end of training camp. I think it's more than likely that Brissett could win it, but like he may not keep that job long. It's just because of his veteran ability. Brissett knows how to maybe command a huddle a little bit better than May, a rookie.
Yeah, but Belichick ain't there neither, so it's a whole new regime, right? I mean,
for sure.
I mean, the Patriots could have traded the 3rd round. They could have got a lot of draft picks for him and stuff like that, and I think they're kind of sold on him. And I mean, I think that with the whole smoke and mirrors of, oh yeah, we're interested for offers, blah 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 blah, but when it came down to it, they knew they weren't going to get Caleb Williams. Then, number 2 or number 3, and, May was there and they took him.
Yeah. And you guys were one of those teams that we heard about as far as trying to really trade up to that 3 spot to get May. But unfortunately, I think New England's asking price was obviously way too high for anybody to trade up, or they just liked May too much to, trade that far down. Because at that point, who knows who is going to be available left, because everybody was shocked about what Atlanta did. So,
well, we went the first 15 picks before a defensive player went off the board, something like that this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but I think the Patriots overall, hey, if you want the 3rd round pick, it's going to cost you a ton. If not, we're very happy getting who we are.
So, and looking at those two quarterbacks there, and just what the Patriots have to work with, what they have to work with in New England as well, is just nothing to really get excited about or crazy about, unfortunately. So even regardless of who actually is the starter, looking at his receiving threats here, I'm pulling the depth chart up real quick. Let's see. Kendrick Bourne and Demario Douglas and
Who?
Jalen Pope. No, I mean, yeah, these are guys, exactly. So Bourne, at least we heard of last year, had a decent season, but wasn't consistent enough to really rely on. It looked like your boy here, J.K. Osborne, went over to them, and then they also have Juju Smith-Schuster, Jalen. What the hell's his last name? Rager, as well. So I mean, they don't really have anybody that you're really scared of in the receiving end that's going to take a short little pass and then break it for a 70-yard touchdown. It's part of the other issue with drafting either one of these QBs as far as like how much points can you really or production can you really expect out of them.
Yep, I agree totally. So, I think that's why Drake May will get in there sooner than later, or he'll be the starter outright. But I think it'll be more starter outright.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely see. That's going to be an interesting QB battle to see how it plays off once training camp gets going. But like I said, oh man, I think in the long run, I think May probably is going to be the starter by the end of the season. But to start the season, like I said, I think it's going to be Brissett. It's just how long does he keep the job? And if you don't even see him keeping the job that long, like, is he even worth drafting, at that point? So
yep.
I think you'd probably maybe look with one of these other teams' QBs as far as Pittsburgh. Who do you like better, or who do you think is going to win that starting job between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields?
Well,
I already know how you like Fields. So,
but I do think Russell Wilson is going to be the starter, and I don't think. I hate to say it. I think they're going to try to play Fields kind of like they do the Saints guy.
Taysom Hill.
Yeah, and I don't think Fields is going to be that guy. And
yeah,
Fields will not be. I don't think he's going to be a Steelers next year, unless Russell Wilson does terrible or gets hurt.
Right. Which between those two, I could see them trying to use Fields like they used to do Cordell Stewart. I know it's completely different coaching staff and regime and whatnot, but as far as him being like another version of Slash type of guy, I think if I had to choose between one of those two, I think I would go with Russell Wilson, just because he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's been more established in the NFL. I do agree. Yeah, Fields is a Slash 2.0. Yeah, so maybe a little bit better thrower, but I guess we'll see. But Wilson wasn't terrible last year. I know the Broncos weren't winning as much as they wanted to, but he wasn't complete garbage. He did have some decent games in there. I think if you had to rely on him as your QB1, you could do it, but you would definitely have games where
you lost because of him.
Yes, because he's going to have those like 12-point games, maybe 9-point games and stuff. But at least what he has to work with in Pittsburgh looks a hell of a lot better than what New England was working with there. So
not much.
Yeah,
the Steelers don't have a a name wide receiver neither.
I mean, so you don't like Pickens too much?
Not just Pickens. I mean, he you got Van Jefferson, but he's a 2 or 3. He's not a number 1 wide receiver, and you they don't really have anybody. I
I
mean,
think
Pickens
Pickens
and Jefferson,
definitely.
that's it. And
Yeah,
neither one of them are like elites.
yeah. I mean, I Pickens. I think the issue with him is he became a bit of a hothead. Towards like the end of the season. He kind of played
And I
undisciplined
still
where
think they're both
they
hot
showed him where he
cold.
was taking kind of played off. Who Wilson and Field?
No, like Pickens and like Jefferson. Like they're gonna have a good
What do you
game,
mean
and
hot cold?
then 2 weeks they're not gonna give you anything on fantasy points. And then they'll light it up for a couple weeks and then nothing for 3 or 4. And there's no consistency between them. You get 6 points or 12.
Gotcha.
And with Russell Wilson
Right.
and Fields
Right.
not,
And
I think Pickens or Jefferson will have a better year if Fields was at the helm, but I don't think so. I mean, just because Russell Wilson can't run, and you know Fields at least gives that linebacker or whatever has to pay attention to him. Otherwise, he's going to be gone 15, 20 yards. And
right, which
you know that
yeah,
all too well.
yeah. I mean, Fields definitely is a dual QB threat for sure. Um, his issue, I mean, he's getting better with the sliding as well. He's definitely going to need to do that. I don't think he has a big enough body to take a lot of goal line hits. So if they're trying to maybe like use him as like a jet sweep or kind of something cute like that every once in a while to kind of get him snuck in. But they did a lot of the Bears did a lot of QB draws around the goal line too, kind of like what Cam Newton did. It's just you're just begging for him to get injured or get a concussion or something like that, having him dive over the pylon or trying to lower his shoulder and kind of bulldoze his way in. I, for the Bears' sake, I hope Fields wins the starting job and plays a lot more, just so we can get a better draft pick. But I think.
But
Go ahead.
if you're to break down the Steelers, right, they got Najee Harris, and I think they brought up Cordell Patterson, right? So I mean, he's a dual threat as far as running back, wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so they have some weapons there to help out Fields or even Russell Wilson. But and like Toussaint just said, he needs to improve his route running. Totally agree. I mean, you get a couple plays and he's like super crisp, and then the next play he's like lazy, and it's like, yeah, I figured I'd just round that corner instead of.
Yeah, kind of like, hey, the ball's not really coming my way this time, so I'm just gonna mail it in and just kind of half-ass it.
The early Randy Moss days. I play what I want to play.
Yeah. And that's bad habits to get into as well. Like once that starts happening, like it's a shitty attitude to have. The teammates see it on the field as well, and then that kind of shit just kind of rubs off on teams. So, but I do agree also with his other statement is the fact that the Steelers defense, it's a tough division as well. Their division, Baltimore, is still good with Lamar Jackson, even though they lost Odell. It's not like he was a big,
Who?
yeah, that guy. So, and Cleveland is going to be interesting to see how Deshaun Watson's going to look, if he can actually stay healthy. But they also added more.
I'm so glad that I wanted the Vikings to go get Deshaun. I am so glad we didn't trade the house for that guy, because what a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, so far, he's definitely not living up to that contract that the Browns and all the picks that they traded. He's not showing that he's worth it. He really has to light it up these last 2 years to kind of make the Browns not feel so stupid for doing what they did, guaranteeing all that money for him. So, but besides even then, like they still got weapons, like as far as receivers. I know they signed who was it? They traded for a receiver. I'm trying to blank on his name here real quick. Let me. Oh, from Jerry Jeudy. They got Jerry Jeudy there from the Broncos. That's what it was. And then I think they also signed a receiver as well. They still got Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore there still. Cedric Tillman had a decent season last year as well. And then they still have Njoku. So, I mean, they have a really good lot of weapons there for Watson. He has no excuses as far as to produce. He just needs to actually produce and play how he did in Houston.
Well, Kevin Stefanski, he's coming from Minnesota, and I mean, he doesn't like. I think when he was in Houston, he had more free reign, to bootleg and do whatever and showboat and kind of be, himself. But now that he's under Stefanski's thumb, it's a little bit different type of a game. Doesn't move at the same pace as he did down in for the Houston. And I think that adjustment. The first year he only played 4 games, but last year I think he's really learning the system. And this is the do or die system or the do or die time for him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For Watson, yeah. If he doesn't produce after this season, I think they really have to. I wouldn't look to moving on from him.
Fields going to the Browns. You called it.
Well, when you're talking about like keepers as well, Fields would be one of those sneaky keepers that you could maybe draft in the end of your fan, because he's definitely going to be there at the end of late rounds of your fantasy drafts.
Yep.
So he could be one of those sneaky ones if he comes on late in the season and wins a starting, gets a contract elsewhere and wins a starting job, maybe Cleveland or Minnesota.
So how did Fields do for you for fantasy last year? He did okay for you, didn't he?
He did good. And it's
you
because
give him a grade, A, B, C, D, or F.
He was a solid B. He was a solid B, and he had definitely some A games. But a lot of his value or production came from the rushing stuff. Like he wouldn't have crazy passing yards. He would maybe barely break 200 passing yards and a touchdown or 2, but he would also rush for 130 yards and then have a touchdown, sometimes 2 rushing touchdowns. But
you gamble on him if he was in one of your leagues of a 12-man team. I mean, would you pick him in the 13th round or 14th round if he's still available?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be like a no. Like I would have to, depending on how the rest of my team was looking. I think a lot of it in those moments in those drafts, if you're playing in, especially in the keeper one, you do start to kind of look towards the future a bit more as far as like who would be good value for next year to get in these later rounds. Someone like Fields and they're lottery shots. I think when you draft guys like Adam Thielen's in the later rounds, there's not much keeper value there, just because even if he has a decent season, the season that you draft him, going into next season is another year older. And
well, he definitely Thielen. I mean, bringing him up, he was a B+ last year, very clutch.
Yeah, but
I think he's going to drop to a B or B- this year. I mean,
and
the boy's getting old.
But just for example, and that's kind of like my point. Like, say last year you drafted Adam Thielen in the 11th round last year. Are you really that worried? Are you really that worried that you wouldn't be able to get him in the 11th round again this year?
Like 10th, 11th, 12th.
Yeah. But so at that point,
in the 13th and 14th rounds, you're either looking for a kicker or a keeper for the following year, someone to take a gamble on.
Right. So more often than not, for sure.
Yep.
Some guys are drafting their QB at that point, and when you're in a smaller, like I said, a 10 man league, I think you can get away with drafting the QB as one of your last 2 picks. I think one of the years you did that, and that was when Cousins blew up and had like a great year. So, and I think the following season he ended up being your keeper too.
Yeah, but you know where I watched the Super Bowl from? The couch. So yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I
there can only
made it
be
to the Super. I'm like the Vikings almost. I'm 0-2 in the Super Bowl. I mean, hopefully I don't go 0-4, but I mean,
well,
I'm
you do
catching
make
up.
a good bridesmaid. So, I mean,
Wow. Appreciate
that,
the love.
yeah. I mean, that's why you're always, second place there. Like you get to the altar, but you always run away.
Sorry, did you win last year? Anyway, moving forward.
I didn't. That it was rigged. That's why. So,
Well, you're the crooked commish. You're supposed to make these things happen.
yeah, the payment didn't go through, I guess. I don't know.
Damn it.
I have to work on that. The bag man may have just ran off with the bag. So, the next QB teams there to talk about is what's happening in Vegas. You have Gardner
Oh, I thought
Minshew.
you were going to talk about Tennessee first. All right.
No, that's more of a 3-headed juggernaut. Let's get the 2 man
Right.
races out of the way. Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell with Las Vegas there. Between those guys, who do you think, if you had to draft one of the 2, who do you think is going to be the starter and possibly, I guess, would be the more relevant QB?
Got to go with Minshew. I mean,
just because of the mustache, or
well, I mean that's part of it, but he too is not a 17 game season starter, but I think O'Connell is not. I don't think he's quite NFL ready, and I think they got to have him go behind Minshew and just learn the game of how it's played in the NFL, and then go, okay, hey, we can let you loose mid-season or even all the way to next year.
Yeah, I think this is one of the QBs here where I think Minshew actually has a legit chance to be the starting quarterback at the end of training camp and keep it. He's not a terrible quarterback. He did, when he had his time in Jacksonville, he did pretty good. He did decent. So he wasn't terrible. I think if you had to use him as your second QB or even use this guy as a matchup kind of play for your bye weeks and whatnot, I think he's going to be more than serviceable. He had, like I said,
I mean, Aiden did okay last year
when he did it back.
He didn't do it.
Yeah,
hateful.
He did, even last year with the Colts.
But
right, I mean, he was nothing. He wasn't winning you your lead, your games, but more often than not, he wasn't costing you your games because he was at least putting up 18 points, 20 points.
I kind of think
15 points. He wasn't,
the Raiders were like, oh,
giving you
maybe we got a
game.
little freaking Purdy magic in O'Connell, right? And that wasn't quite the case, but.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what ended up happening. NFL is a league of trends. So once one team finds a diamond in the rough there, everyone tries to kind of copy that or hopes that they can have that same success with the late round QB. So, I mean, there's a reason why Tom Brady's are, come around once in a blue moon and guys like that. It's very, very rare when you can kind of have that sort of production with a guy that you get near, the last few rounds of an NFL draft. So
with those 2 quarterbacks for the Raiders is the reason why I will not draft Devontae Adams. I mean, just the poor guy is just, It's unfortunate because such a high quality receiver and, he got traded to the Raiders and unfortunately for him.
No, he signed with it. He didn't get traded. He chose to go. He signed with the Raiders. He didn't get traded. He went there because he
Well,
thought he wanted to play with
Derek
David
Carr was going to
Carr.
be the answer. Like, oh, my freaking Aaron Crazy Rogers, blah, 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 you know, buddy, and thought he could relive college magic.
Yeah, kind of. You know, he wanted to go back to the college glory days and stuff. Which I mean,
Oh, that didn't
it's not.
last very long, did it?
Yeah, no. I mean, he. What's his name? Carr only had like one season to prove that he could hold the job down, and obviously he didn't do enough in the Raiders' eyes to hold it down. So I didn't
Yeah, I
think it
think
was
Carr's
terrible
like a
that year.
C or a B quarterback, a B minus, C to a B minus quarterback. He's not gonna, you know. I think he would be a great B plus backup quarterback, but I mean, the Saints ain't gonna go anywhere with Carr at the helm.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, at least he's better than his brother. He's having a better career than his brother did. Like I said, I think, like you said, I believe he's solid as well. I just think he needs a lot of weapons around him and a lot of help around him, and maybe just having Devontae wasn't enough. So, but because of Devontae, I know you're staying away from him. That's why I think Minshew will actually have a decent season.
Chance of starting?
Yeah,
No.
and holding it down because of guys like him, Jacoby Myers also wasn't too bad. They signed
Yep.
Mike Gallup, and then they drafted Brock Bowers as well, and they still have Michael Mayer. He was okay. He was decent last year as a rookie. So hopefully year two, like they have a decent amount of weapons. The only one spot they're not like loaded at or really, have a great weapon at is just the running back and Zamir White. Like we just don't know what he's going to really do this season. He had some decent games, okay games last season, but nothing to really make you super excited about this season.
I think Madison is going to give Zamir White a competition to be the lead back. Neither one of them are true, in my opinion, NFL lead backs.
Okay.
We learned that last year by Madison. Zamir White's history just, but that's
Right.
I think the Raiders did a lot on the offensive power, like for the line, the wide receivers. I just don't think they have anything in the backfield. And so unless they're just going to be whipping the ball downfield all the time and, going to be like the Patriots of old and, we throw 35 times and we run 7, I mean,
Right.
Then, yeah.
Well, they may be throwing a lot if they're losing a lot of games. So
Like a cat's ass always behind.
pretty much. So, I mean, that's definitely within the realm of possibility there. So, and fantasy wise, that's all you really want. I mean, who cares if they win or lose at the end of the game? You just want the stats there. So if they're always playing from behind, that's almost, you love that as from your fantasy QB, just because it's just, it's yardage and points that's going to be racking up. So
in my personal opinion, I think Devontae Adams will have, if they stick with Minshew for 17 games, I think he will have better fantasy numbers than he will if they stick with O'Connell.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I think Minshew is the better play. I think if I was looking between, I had to draft between New England's options, Pittsburgh's options, and Vegas's options, I would probably end up going with Minshew over a Wilson and Brissett. If I needed the second QB, if I was in a 2 QB league, or if I was in a really deep fantasy league. So,
yeah, and if like on a 20-man league, if Minshew was available and he was designated as starter, I would take him. And just like on a 12-man league, if Devontae Adams was available, like in the 7th round, well, shit, it would be pretty hard to pass him up. I mean, but
yeah, for sure. If he ended up falling that far, yeah, it would be. So,
I mean, I think he's a 5th to a 6th. But anyway, go ahead.
No. Go ahead and finish your thought.
No, I just figure, Devontae's a I mean, I'll even be one better. 4th round to 7th. I mean, he won't make it past the 7th. But
Gotcha.
wow, the dog disagrees.
Yeah, he didn't like that take at all. So, well, let's do this while they're talking it out. Let's take a quick little commercial break and pay some bills real quick. All right. So, if you need to use the restroom, by all means, go ahead.
There was a time when high standards prevailed, when excellent craftsmanship was displayed and treated with the utmost importance. Acquire the crisp, refreshing taste of Moore's Beer. Moore's Beer. Raise your standards.
Hey, we're back. We want to thank all our sponsors here, Moore's Beer, in the zone. We really do appreciate that. Moore's Beer is more of a Chicago beer, so anybody that lives up in Chicago, go ahead and look for that and check it out. Let us know what you think. Also want to remind you guys, if you do like what you're hearing, please hit the thumbs up button and share and subscribe to us so you don't miss an episode of ours. So let's move on to your favorite team, literally, the Minnesota Vikings. Between Sam Darnold and the rookie JJ, if you were in a bind there and you had to kind of go there, who do you think is going to be the starter? And do you think that starter will remain the starter throughout the NFL season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that the Vikings are hoping that Sam Darnold does well enough at OTAs, does well enough at training camp, and earns the starting position. I believe he was brought here really for a short-term 1 to 3 year type residency, and I think by the end of the season, JJ McCarthy will be the starter, unless Darnold gets lucky and like plays like he was drafted a couple years ago. I mean, you know, there was a lot of hype behind him, right? And it just,
Right.
you know, his fireworks never went off. They're just wet fuse all the time. And could have been the teams that he was, being with the Jets. There was never really any help with them. I mean, we can come up with excuses for a lot of players on why they do or do not perform well. So I'm hoping that Darnold does do a B type job. I mean, great if it was better, but I by no means am expecting that. But I think McCarthy will be starting by the end of the year, and then we'll have Darnold as our B backup quarterback.
Do you think Darnold is the better option for Jefferson to succeed or have a 1,000-yard season like you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Just because Darnold has thrown to, big name receivers and has played in the NFL a little bit further. And like we said earlier, or in our private conversations, McCarthy was great 10 yards and under, but that's not Jefferson. He doesn't want to be 7-yard pass and get crunched by a linebacker. He wants to run 15, 20 yards and possibly get loose and go the distance or whatever. So
leap over a cornerback and catch a ball and make it a highlight.
At the end of the day, if you don't give a quarterback any time, then it doesn't matter who you have catching the ball, they doesn't get there. So, but I do think Darnold is the better option to start until McCarthy and Jefferson can create a chemistry, or McCarthy and Hawkinson can create that chemistry. Jordan Addison and McCarthy are starting to create the chemistry because JJ wasn't there, and obviously we know that Hawkinson is out with a ACL, so it's. I would not draft either one of those players.
When is he expected to be back?
They're hoping by the start of the season. For Hawkinson?
By the end of end of the preseason,
by the start of season.
Start of the season. Wow. So he's really not going to have any kind of training camp or anything. He's going to be hitting the ground running. He may come up with the start.
Yeah, the end of training camp, hopefully he'll be on the field, but they're projecting him hopefully be ready by week 1.
Well, hopefully he can hit the ground running. If not, he may be. Hopefully you don't spend too high of a draft pick on him. But like I said, tight ends tend to be premium just because there's only a handful of them that really have any more.
Well, we did draft. What was we picked up? Was it Green Bay's old tight end? I had to look it up, but we're no setbacks on Hawkinson, so that's good.
Yeah, that is good.
I think whatever we picked up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. With Darnold, I could see him keeping that starting job just because of if he has the bigger arm, as long as he can be somewhat accurate and get it in the area of JJ, because of those weapons around him, I think he would really have to fuck it up to kind of like lose this starting job to JJ, especially not even make it through the training camps and the preseason games.
Yeah.
Like you have to be really, really bad. So and I just don't like. I would be shocked by that.
I mean, knock on wood. I hope Darnold's the quarterback all year.
Yeah, I think he definitely has all the tools around him to have a successful season and to keep that starting job. Having JJ, especially now that he's paid, he's going to be there for the preseason game, the training camps or whatnot. He's not going to be disgruntled or any shit like that. So he should have no attitude on the field and be a team player, which he's always been. There's never been any issues with him on or off the field. So,
he's not a Stephon
like I said,
Diggs.
hopefully just things can. Correct. Yeah. Making your QB feel like shit if you didn't see him. Like, say, I was wide open, man. You missed me. What the fuck? He's not that type of receiver, thank God. So, but then Jordan Addison is another deep threat, and he had a great rookie season as well.
Yes.
I'm not too sure about Brandon Powell. I'm not if he was someone you guys drafted last year or if he's a rookie this year.
We drafted him last year. He was came in clutch in a few games. Not,
Okay.
He did well. He did well for his first year last year. Just kind of like making some plays here and there. I mean, he's a smaller guy, but he played well.
Okay.
I mean, he's going to have to fight to make the roster again this year, but
Okay, well, it doesn't
like
look
every
like
year,
there's
right?
two big names behind him. Nikhil Harry can't seem to stay on the roster. Jalen Naylor, Trent Sheffield, Lucky Jackson. I mean, that guy, he may not beat out that guy. The guy's named Lucky, for God's sake. So, I mean, he's probably going to just make the roster.
Jackson had a really good preseason last year. Just good enough to make the training team, right? Not the full roster, but you make the practice squad. But he was in there. I think it was like between him, do we go 6 wide receivers or 5? And I think he was right on the bubble.
Gotcha. Okay. He's probably one of those last day cuts. So it looks like with your tight ends, if Hawkinson can't go, it looks like the backup's Josh Oliver and then Robert Tunyon. He was with our team last year.
That's the guy, Tunyon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and he was a disappointment for sure last year with us. I was hoping that he would have produced a bit better, but I shouldn't expect much from an ex-Green Bay player. So, but
right.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I think they brought him in and signed him just in case Hawkinson's not available.
Okay, and who knows? Who knows if he can kind of catch some of that magic that he had with Green Bay. But speaking of Green Bay, it looks like you guys took their running back with Aaron Jones. Do you think that's another weapon for Darnold as well, where like he still should be a solid runner, and then I think Ty Chandler is going to be a good complement to Jones.
I would love for Jones to bust out like a 1,400-yard season.
That would be crazy.
Just so I can, like do this little thing like this to those fucking cheese bait, Packers, I mean.
Yeah, no, I mean that would have kind of come out of nowhere. I would be almost afraid, like, did he just blow his load this one season? Because if he would have that kind of season, it would be damn near impossible to replicate that the following season.
Totally agree.
Yeah, so but
realistically, it's 800 yards, maybe. Maybe 7 and 6 between the two of them.
He could possibly. I think he could possibly get over the 1,000-yard mark, but he would have to play like about 14 games of the season,
which I don't think he's ever done.
He may have in his younger days, but now that he's getting older, he's got more miles on those tires.
At least not the last 5 years.
Yeah, it hasn't been any time recent. Let's see when has Aaron Jones's last few seasons. So yeah, like last year, they said he was at 656 there. Let's see.
Delvin Cook's still out there. No home for him.
Yeah. Let's see. So 12 games. So it's 17. 12 games, 16, 14, 15, 17. Last year he had 11. So for the most part, yeah, he does pretty good. But his first 1,000-yard season it was a 19, and he played 16 games. And then the following season he played 14 games and got to 1,100.
And what year was that?
The following season, 15 games and only had which one? The 1,100?
Yeah.
The 1,100-yard season was in 2020. So the two, he had 1,100 yards as well. He played 17 games, but then, like I said, last year he was injured quite a bit. So I think, like I said, 14 games at the least, maybe 13 he can kind of get there. But who knows? Who knows how healthy he can stay? Going on, there's a few other quarterbacks. Give me 1 second here. There's a few other quarterbacks that have, it's a three-headed race there between them. And none of these, like I said, I really think anyone's going to draft. I just kind of want to get your opinion on who knows, maybe one of these guys would be a keeper pick at the end, but I doubt it. But just between Tennessee, you have Will Levis, Malik Willis, and then Mason Rudolph that signed there in the offseason. Does Levis or Willis, would any of those guys intrigue you on being a late round pick as maybe a keeper, or do you think they have any kind of value like that at all?
I like Will Levis, and I don't mind Malik Willis. I think with them bringing in Hopkins in there, and they got Tony Pollard in there. They have a lot of like things. I'm not a Mason Rudolph fan, so we can just like let him go. But between the two, I think a real late sleeper, maybe Will Levis, if he is deemed to be the starter. Definitely one of those two if you're in a 16-man season, 16-man team. I think
And I
they
think
did bring in some offensive power, though.
yes, they also signed in the offseason Calvin Ridley as well.
Yeah.
So and he
I mean,
so
Ridley and Hopkins, that's a pretty good duo.
yeah, for sure. And then like you said, they signed Tony Pollard as their starting running back, or at least he's projected to be the starting. I think everybody would be a little surprised. He does have Tajay Spears, who they drafted last year. Um, he could be a sneaky play. I don't know if Tajay has the type of body to be able to last the whole season by himself, but he's a decent back for sure to
He
have
was a
as your
great
number two.
he was a great backup to King Henry.
He was, yeah, he was for sure.
Yep.
He was a little bit of a different style than the bruiser that Henry was. But also Tennessee also signed Tyler Boyd as well in the offseason. So, and then they still have Traylon Burks. So, I mean, they have some decent weapons, like you were saying there in Tennessee. Like, they're not as good as maybe some of these other ones that we talked about earlier, but that's nothing to kind of sniff your nose at or kind of look at and kind of just scoff at and stuff. So uh, it's decent enough weapons where either one of those QBs should have a solid season. They may not have a Pro Bowl season, but at least should have a decent season. So I think, like I said, the more intriguing of the two for me is Will Levis for sure. Malik Willis, I think if he was going to be anything in the NFL, he would have been that by now. Because, I mean, he's been in the league. This is his third season now. He was a guy that they drafted in the third round, I believe, 2 years ago, and didn't do enough to beat out Tannehill at all. So,
Yep.
so I think if anything, if there's any value between any of those QBs, I think, like I said, Will Levis, I agree with you, is the one to go there.
And I
Moving on.
think one of the other two will not be there on the team. I think they'll get let go like during training camp or something, whether it be, Rudolph or Malik. Just
Yeah, and I wouldn't be
one's gonna be
surprised
a
if it
back.
was Malik.
What's that?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was Malik that they ended up letting go.
Yeah.
Just Rudolph. He had starting experience being in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Granted, he wasn't starting the whole season, but he's shown that he can win a ball game as a starter if needed. But I think if Tennessee was relying on him to be their long-term quarterback for the season, then it's going to be a rough fantasy year for all those receivers there if you have to rely on Mason Rudolph. So the other QBs as well, that's a three-headed juggernaut, is Denver with Bo Nix, Jason Stidham, and the wild card, Zach Wilson. Are any of those guys intriguing to you at all as far as fantasy value, or kind of do you see any fantasy value at all in any of those guys?
I would have been okay if Minnesota would have traded their 11th round pick and went back and grabbed Bo Nix. I like him. I think he's going to do really well in Denver. I don't know if he's going to start necessarily, but I do like him as a quarterback, and I think, I don't think Zach Wilson. I really see Bo Nix being the starting quarterback. I mean, unless he does something stupid in training camp, then Zach Wilson's not going to beat him out. Who's he? He's a Storm Mormon, and that's all he had. BYU.
He's the MILF hunter, so put some respect on this guy's name.
Hey. That's funny though.
I think the thing that Nix has going for him is that he's Sean Payton's guy. Like Sean Payton drafted this guy, and he drafts him in the first round as well. So Nix is somebody that I could see trying to draft in a keeper league, like for sure. He could be definitely a wild card just because I think Stidham. I could see him winning the starting job to start the season, but definitely not keeping it there.
Really?
Yeah, just
Wow.
having NFL experience and knowing how to.
You
come
heard
out.
it here, folks. The crooked
I,
commish predicting Stidham.
I just don't. Something about being able to command an NFL huddle, knowing how to get these guys to listen to you. Like I think it's harder for a rookie guy to come in and kind of take the reins. I think right away. Just being established in the NFL gives you that little bit of extra of knowing how to break a huddle, knowing how to check, make audibles during the lines and stuff like that, and making sure everyone is on the same page. But what Stidham has going against him is the fact, like I said, that Sean Payton picked this guy, and obviously he really likes what he saw in him to use a first round pick on him as well. So I think Denver wants Nix to be the guy, but
so you look at Denver's backfield, right? They don't have like a legit running back. Stidham can't run. Zach Wilson's slow. Bo Nix is not like super fast, but he's way faster than the other two. They got Cortland Sutton as a wide receiver. So there's, they don't have, they're not offensive heavy at all. So, I mean, I don't see it being a good year for Denver, regardless.
yeah,
I mean, their defense will keep them in
one
it.
thing that also having Nick's being able to throw to his college teammate for come along a bit faster. Just having a familiar target to throw to, you kind of know this guy's tendencies and habits straight out of college. You've been playing with them for this past season and whatnot, so that should also help him. But like I said, I don't think Stidham's going to keep that job long. I think Stidham would have to have some god awful preseason games to
they're going to be chanting
keep that job,
the Knicks era,
or be the starter by the season start.
Wow.
Yeah, they're going to be wanting to nix Stidham here, give him or mix it up or something. The last kind of three-headed juggernaut that I want to talk about here before we wrap it up.
No, not that team.
Giants.
Nobody cares about this team that you're going to talk about. You don't need to talk about them guys.
Yeah, right. I know. There's not really much to talk about. Let's see. Fields won't do. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. Let's get that back up. Fields won't do shit in Pittsburgh. Same thing they said about Trubisky, his first round there. Yeah, Trubisky didn't do much in Pittsburgh with this time there as well. And then Keith, Pitt's going to be a run and defense. Okay. Well, I could definitely see that. Having Najee there and Jalen Warren.
They didn't extend Najee neither, did they?
No, they did not. So they're probably going to use up Najee for as much as they can get out of him, and then kind of I see them moving on from Najee by the end of this season for sure. But with New York, between you got Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Tommy DeVito.
So,
hey,
I think it's really funny that the Giants beat Minnesota in the playoffs a couple years ago, and Daniel Jones did really well. I mean, he got that huge freaking contract, or not huge, but he got a decent contract. And then it's like, that was it. I'm done. Thanks for the money. And now here you got, three quarterbacks that are fighting for the starting job with Drew Lock and Daniel Jones, and then Tommy Nowhere DeVito comes in and shit. I don't know nothing on Tommy
He's throwing
DeVito.
salami sandwiches before you know it.
He used to play for Illinois. I've seen him when he used to play against the Gophers. So other than that,
Okay.
Can't say anything. Uh, I guess, for me,
for sure, New York has buyer's remorse.
I'm going to root for DeVito because the other two are just clowns.
You're going to root for what?
For DeVito.
Gotcha.
The other two are just clowns.
Yeah, I think I could see Locke winning the starting job there. So but winning the starting job
shit
there
in Denver. How could you?
He went to Denver and then he got traded to Seattle and couldn't beat out Geno. But I think between Drew Lock and Daniel Jones, I think he should be able to beat out Daniel Jones.
I don't see it happening.
Just because, or they
I
know
think
what he can bring to the table, which isn't much. It's just the napkins and.
If we rewind some time a little bit, right? Daniel Jones has been with the Giants for like 4 years now or whatever. So he has a little bit of rapport with the team. But you look at Drew Lock, right? He was in Denver, had decent offensive weapons and couldn't do shit. Now he's with the Giants and they have less weapons, and you're going to expect him to do more? He doesn't have anybody to throw the ball.
Not necessarily more. I think one of those years with Locke as well, I think was one of his rookie years. But obviously not having Saquon Barkley there, like Keith was saying, he was the bread and butter for New York. Daniel Jones definitely relied on him. So without being able to have him there, and now you just have Devin Singletary as to throw to, that's definitely a step back.
Didn't he play for Chicago?
Who? Singletary? No. He was Buffalo and then Houston last year. That's a different Singletary you're thinking of. You're thinking of Mike Singletary.
My bad.
Yeah. Don't confuse him with a Hall of Famer with like a guy that's going to be forgotten about in here 5 years NFL wise.
When I hear Tommy DeVito, you know who I think of? Tommy the Drunk Kramer.
Tommy the Drunk Kramer?
Yeah, Tommy Kramer for the Vikings quarterback. He was always drunk though.
Oh.
So I'm just saying,
What year was that? Like what time frame was that?
Shit. Long time ago. Back in the late 80s.
Back when you could still drink in the locker room, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah.
Tommy Kramer, he was a drunk, got lots of DUIs in Minnesota, and
Hey, win or lose, Tommy's celebrating one thing.
That's right. Tommy the Drunk Kramer. Now we got Tommy the Drunk DeVito, right? Up there in the.
Yeah, up there in New York, yeah, possibly. Like I said, with the name like that, you definitely in New York is definitely the perfect name to have there.
That guy could probably rips up a mean sandwich.
Yeah, mean pastrami sandwich or something. Yeah. I'm sure he could. So, but
no, I do think
anyways,
I'm not going to touch anybody on the Giants as far as either one of those quarterbacks. I guess if I was on a 16-person team, I would pick maybe DeVito, whatever. But I hope he gets the starting job, and I hope he does well.
Okay. Like I said, he did decent last year with Daniel Jones going out, but obviously I think he's shown that if anything, he's going to be a backup, a journeyman backup type of guy. I think this is Locke's probably best opportunity to show that he can be a starting quarterback. I know as unlikely as that may seem to the majority of our viewers here. But I think this is his last chance for sure to show that he can be a starting guy. He's not going to have much to work with, but Malik Neighbors will be a decent target to have. Darius Slayton's been there for a while. Then he has Wandell Robinson. He's decent. The only issue with him is he just can't stay healthy. He's never, I think 1 week he's healthy, and then 2 weeks he's unhealthy, and then he comes back and he's healthy for a week or two, and then he's gets hurt again. So he just.
I do agree. If Locke does get the job, it's his one and done season. You know what I mean? You're either a starting quarterback or you're not, and if you become a starting quarterback on this team and make good, then you should be able to play on any team.
Yeah, I mean, that's the classic New York saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. So if he can do it there in New York, then for sure.
I like what Keith said. I mean, I think the Giants should have went after Cousins.
Yeah, well, the funny thing with Fields could have had Atlanta, or Atlanta could have gone to or Fields could have gone to Atlanta. Sorry. From the sounds of it, yeah, it did seem like that was definitely within the realm of possibilities, but apparently Fields wanted to go to Pittsburgh. Like that was the Bears doing right by him, is to trading him to Pittsburgh. So I
probably thought he had a better chance of a starting job.
Hey, I mean, I guess so, but I mean, I think he could have been the starter in Atlanta, and this is before they made the trade for Cousins. If they would have traded him there before that point, I think he could have been the starter there, and he would have had a lot of weapons, the same weapons that Cousins has now. He would have had London and all that.
Let's just talk about Cousins real quick for a second, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Do you think Kyle Pitts is going to have a legit year? Because you have drafted Kyle Pitts on your fantasy team. I have drafted Kyle Pitts on my fantasy team, and we have both been very disappointed. I mean, it's like, you're like, dude, when are you ever going to play the game? And, it's just one disappointment after another. And now that you have Cousins at the helm in Atlanta, do you think that Pitts is going to have a decent year?
I think he has to. I mean, it's hard to say no every season. Like every season going into it, there's every excuse or just kind of like all the signs point to saying yes, he should have a good season. He, is a big target, especially in the red zone. He runs like a wide receiver. You were thinking or hoping that he could kind of elevate the play of the QB, but whether it was Heineke or Ritter, but that obviously didn't happen. I don't know if it's the QB or if it's the offensive scheme that he was in there that was holding him back. But
I think if he doesn't have a good year this year, he's going to be like a David Njoku and just.
Well, Njoku, he did good last season, actually. He didn't have
good?
Well, let's look him up real quick. He had a decent, he was, I think, one of the top tight ends last season.
So will you draft Pitts?
I think he's draftable. It's the round that you get him in. I can't feel comfortable getting Pitts in around 5 or before. I wouldn't feel now 6 and afterwards, if he's still there. Sure, then yeah, I think I would kind of reluctantly.
So you're saying in your 12-man
I think he would be the best.
In one of your leagues, on your your 12-man team, Kyle Pitts is available in the 6th round. You're going to spend a pick on it. That's what I'm hearing.
I think it's within the realm of possibility. I have to know. I have to see, obviously, what happened in the earlier rounds. Did I get a QB already? Have I drafted running backs and receivers? I'm assuming it, depending on how my depth is looking there. If I feel good and happy about the receivers and the team that I've established at that point, then I could see myself doing that. Especially if he's the best of what's available. If it's like say between him and like Cole Kmet, then yeah, I would draft him over Kmet. Or
Okay.
if
So
it's him
while you're
and
finishing up Njoku, what is the latest round you predict Kirk Cousins to be available in a 12-man league?
probably I think probably 10 or 11. I think there's years where you've gotten him later, but I think probably 11.
All right.
So, and then looking at Njoku's numbers last year, he had 81 catches, 882 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, for a tight end, that's not bad at all.
Is actually better than I thought. I was thinking more of like a 660, like
right.
60 receptions. But I do know that he did come on near the end of the season a lot.
Yeah, for sure. He did.
Especially after, unfortunately, what's his face got hurt. The Browns running back.
Chubbs.
Yeah. Once when Chubbs went down, it seemed like Njoku's numbers went up, because it's like, hey, I mean, not that is it Ford there is their backup guy, but
he was decent. But I think he was definitely Joe Flacco's one of his favorite targets for sure.
Yep.
So, and then Keith, the last Pitts has potential. Cousins always had Diggs, Justin, Thielen, though. So yeah, Cousins always did have weapons, but he should have a decent amount of weapons there in Atlanta. I mean, he's got Drake London. He's got, I think, Mooney signed there in the offseason as well. Then he has Pitts, and then he's going to have Bijan Robinson as well. So there's no reason why he shouldn't. Give me 1 second.
Well, now that he's away and he didn't put us in a commercial break, we can talk schmack about the crooked commish. Oh, he's back. Sorry. You're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, guys.
No
Kelsey,
tight end before the 6th unless you're Kelsey or Andrew and Komet. Who does Komet play for?
That's messed up. So
I mean, come on now, right? Seriously, 6th round? You're gonna take like 4th round and take Komet? No way.
Yeah,
with an unproven quarterback? No way.
I don't know if I would take Komet that early, but Kelsey and Andrews for sure. And I think if Hawkinson hadn't gotten that injury at the end of the season, he would definitely be in that discussion as well as far as talking.
He was definitely he's definitely top 3 tight end.
And Kittle's as well. Kittle's gets injured a lot though. That's definitely
Kittle is ever since Purdy's been there, he hasn't had the huge numbers that he had before. With Jimmy G.
It's just because it's just injuries wise lately. He hasn't been able to stay on the field as much. Looking at Kittle's numbers last season, they were decent, but they weren't. They were definitely low for what Kittle's owners expect out of him. Last season, he 65 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So the touchdowns were there and the yards were there, but the catches definitely were not there. You're hoping for him to be in the 85 catch range. So even 75 would have been decent, but he's still a solid option for sure. There's just a lot of options in San Francisco. That's the only problem with Kittle's is besides, you got Debo, you got McCaffrey, you got Brandon Ayuk, that's all are going to want the ball. So that's kind of the only issue there with Kittle's. So
I mean,
All right. So
if you bring up Hawkinson, right? I think last year he was just short of 1,000 yards before he got hurt. I mean, so definitely a freaking. He should be definitely talked about in the top 5, and if tight ends if they're. I mean, I still think he's probably in the top 3, but
I think Kittles is or not Kittles. Pitts, I think, probably rounds out my top 5 fantasy QBs. As of right now, it's probably Kelsey still. You still got Andrews. You still got Kittles, Hawkinson, and Pitts type of there. Like those are the ones that are kind of like the best options there. Komet had 0 drops last year. The problem was Getsy kept him on the line to block besides more. Yeah, and they used him a bit more in the red zone for sure. Komet last season. The only issue I have with Komet is, as big as he goes down pretty easy. Like I want him to be able to break more tackles, like Kittles does and stuff. Like I feel like Komet just goes down a bit too easy for being as big as he is. Hopefully, if he could be a guy that bulldozes motherfuckers and doesn't go down to QB hits, then I could definitely be more excited about Komet. He had 6 touchdowns last season, but to get in that elite tier, he needs to get to more 9 touchdowns, be flirting with 10 touchdown range. So, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with Caleb Williams. He definitely might be his security blanket there, being the tight end. But
I mean, 73 receptions, right? I just pulled them up. 73 receptions, 719 yards, 0 drops, right? I mean, that can't take anything. If you got sticky hands, more, that's amazing. I mean, but yeah, maybe Caleb Williams will freaking use him on those, check downs, and Cole can actually be in a top 5 tight end group. You know what I mean? I think anybody that catches the ball 71 times and has 0 drops definitely should be, top 5 worthy.
Right. Yeah, and hopefully this new offensive scheme, Waldron's scheme, is more tight end friendly. I think seeing him, what they did in Seattle, they used their tight ends quite a bit. It wasn't all tight ends, but he should be. I don't think Komet is going to be blocking as much as he did under Getsy's offensive scheme. If Getsy would release him, that TD would be, I mean, it could be. So, but hopefully, like I said, with Caleb, he'll be able to get to that 9 touchdown, 10 touchdown range. But like I said, if he's throwing that many touchdowns, hopefully that means everybody else in the offense is getting a decent amount of looks as well. So I know you may not want that, being a Vikings fan, but
long as Green Bay's at the bottom, I don't care who's at top.
Hey, that's fair. I can toast you to that. I can say skull to that on that one.
Wow.
So.
And it's being recorded.
Just on that occasion there. So
like we didn't get the
no, I ain't going that far. So but we're about almost an hour and a half into it, so we should wrap up the show. Before we go, I did want to thank you for joining us tonight and sharing your thoughts with us, your fantasy football thoughts. Is there any shout outs, or is there anything you want to say, last words to our fantasy football guest at all?
No, I think I'm good. We started off, recognizing JJ and got a couple little 2 cents in love for him. And, I think it's going to be a good year. I think with all these rookie quarterbacks, it'll be interesting to see, and out of the 5, like we'll just say the top 5 rookie quarterbacks that were drafted, it's going to be interesting. And, for you guys, I hope Caleb Williams does all right, but it'll be interesting to see which one is the diamond in the rough and which ones is, just more fool's gold, Yeah,
it will be. So I want to thank everybody that was able to join us tonight. Like I said, if you do like what you hear, we're going to be here every Monday, 8:30 Central Time. Please please subscribe so you don't miss. Please talk about us with your friends, share the videos and stuff so they can kind of come in. If you guys have any questions, by all means, drop them in the chat or drop a comment, and I'll definitely look out for those and respond. I want to thank Jay Grizz for joining. Daniel, thank you for your comment. I cannot pronounce that name. How would you say that name?
Toussaint.
Yes, thank you for commenting. And Keith, thank you also for commenting as well. Like I said, for those people that were watching and didn't comment, don't be shy. Drop a comment, drop a like. We won't be too rude and obnoxious to you. So we know how to play nice. So, but anyways, yeah, sometimes. But anyways, thank you guys as well again, and remember to like and subscribe, and to either be good or be good at it. Thank you.
Go Vikes.
Take
See you,
care.
man.
Until next week, guys. Later.
Thanks.